37 states, but also several nations and et cetera. What are some of the things that you talk about in terms of dealing with this as an issue?
Golly, there's a wide range, everything from liability to the city of not protecting citizens to on-scene investigation to victim assistance to stalking to assessing lethality in cases and hearing those key phrases when someone says, well, he said he was going to kill me. To a lot of people, that would mean, goodness, we've got a serious case here, but to some people it might mean, I hear it every day. It's hearing those key phrases so we can improve the quality of life for all of our citizens. And you know, Doc, I wanted to say that a lot of people look at this issue as a woman's issue.
Good.
It is not a woman's issue. This is a civil rights issue. Because when departments, police departments or cities are sued around the country, when someone is killed and they find out that government did not protect that person, a federal judge sits in the bench and says, you failed to offer equal protections under the law, which is a violation of their civil rights. It has nothing to do with the National Organization of Women or the ACLU or the NAACP or any of these groups, that special interest groups. This has got to do with civil rights. And if we can't offer civil rights to our citizens in their own homes, then we're in a pretty sad shape. So I wanted to let you know that this is not just a woman's issue. This is an issue of I have my rights, and the government has an obligation to protect my rights.
As a matter of fact, not long ago, the Metropolitan Police Department initiated some new efforts in that direction. Why don't you give us sort of an overview of the attempts?
It's a major shift for our police department. Hopefully we're putting together a section to deal with just family violence, anything from simple assault to assault on the fetus, which is a real problem today, assault on pregnant women, false imprisonment, kidnapping, aggravated assault, spousal rape, all these crimes that are committed within the family, elder domestic abuse. We're going to be investigating aggressively for the first time in cooperation with more prosecution or better prosecution from the DA's office, with a committed effort to the judges. We're going to open up another docket in court. We're going to have more probation officers. We're going to be working real close with Susan's group at Peace so we can attack this problem as aggressively as we can, so in the long run we can lower that unbelievable number of 25 deaths every year in Nashville.
25 deaths, as many as 25 in...
That number has been constant. If you look at the number of homicides over the last 10 years in Davidson County, they've gone up and down, anywhere from 60 to 100. But the domestic violence numbers, murder numbers, have stayed constant. And we want to attack that number. Other cities have done that. They have lowered the number of domestic murders by using the same method, and we hope to do the same thing. We're talking about over 20 investigators just to deal with the issue of family violence. But if you look at the numbers, which are 18,000, it's the second most committed crime, second to larceny. So we're trying to get focused, and with great leadership through Mayor Bredesen and Chief Kirshner, we're on our way, thank goodness, for the first time.
Ms. Cannon, exactly what does this mean to your organization, Peace, that effort made by the Metropolitan Police Department?
Well, it means a number of things. It means, number one, that victims who in the past may not have been so sure that the criminal justice system was really there for them and to help them, they can be assured of that, and they can use the system to the fullest extent, which is what they need to do. It also means that we get back up in our program. We're a counseling and education program, and we work with the individual problems that the batterers have in terms of rehabilitating him. But we can't do anything unless he realizes that there is a system out there, part of our social structure, which is saying this behavior is not going to be allowed, and that there will be consequences if you don't comply with your probation, and part of your probation is to come to the Peace Counseling Program. Then without that, we have no teeth in what we do, and we really cannot get through to rehabilitate these men. And so that means that our program can work in a way that it really hasn't been able to before.
And not only will this impact your program, but it will impact all programs dealing with family and domestic violence.
Absolutely.
Is that what we're saying? We've got about 5 minutes. Let's allow the two of you to sort of give us some information that we've not talked about up to this point, and at the same time, information that you feel will be beneficial and helpful to our audience this morning. Let's start off with you, Sergeant Wynn.
Well, I think the most important person in your audience today are those victims who have not been able to gather enough courage to break the cycle of violence. Those victims who are hopeful that it'll stop and it'll just end, and in most cases it doesn't stop and it never ends, and that it takes a certain amount of courage. I'd like to tell them that the Metro Police Department is there. We're just a phone call away, and all they have to do is pick up that phone and make that commitment to calling us, and eventually, if this section goes online, which we hope that it will, there'll be an apparatus there that will be able to service them in a way that they've never done before and give them enough courage to live a quality life. We only have one. Why live it in bondage is basically what these people are going through. So I just want those victims to know that somebody here cares about them. Somebody here.
Excuse me, you know, Ms. Cannon, while all of that might be true, but there are a number of things that keep people from reporting outside of, well, certainly fear is a part of it, but what are some of the other things? I mean, if a woman is, well, if a spouse is living in a home situation where either he or she, and primarily we're talking about the she's, where she cannot find the support that is necessary, then how can she perhaps become involved in, inform on her husband and lose all of the economic possibilities and those, let's speak to that.
It's a very, very real issue. Oftentimes the public at large will say, well, why doesn't a battered woman just leave the situation? It's so simple. And I always think, well, why doesn't he leave her alone? But, you know, there are those economic reasons. There are children. They have a family. She sometimes will not have the education or the skill base to go out and support her children. It could be the case that he, in some situations, is a good father, and she doesn't want to give that up. Sometimes a woman's bottom line will be once the children start becoming abused, then she somehow finds a way to leave. But she wants to keep that family intact. Again, fear is part of it. You know, sometimes he will say, if you leave, I will kill you. And she knows that she needs to believe that and take that seriously. Some women have a religious commitment to their marriage, and they don't want to give up the promise of their vows. Those things can enter in. These men are Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hydes, and so often that cycle of violence is the violence occurs, and then there's this wonderful honeymoon phase where everything is back to what it was like during the courtship, the roses, the flowers, you know, the candy, and it's really very wonderful. He's then presenting his very nice and good side. Then the tensions build, and then the violence occurs again. And so it takes her a long time sometimes to figure out, in the confusion of all of this, who is this person? What does this cycle mean? And during that hopeful phase of the honeymoon, she really believes all of his promises, that this will never happen again. I'll get the help I need. I promise, please give me one more chance. And so it's a very confusing, mind-boggling time to be in, to figure out the big picture of what I need to do and what the reality of the situation is. She loves the good part, and the bad part is the part that matters, and she needs to reconcile herself to.
Very good. This final minute, Sergeant Wynn, any additional comments that you have over the last minute that we have?
Well, just, how could I say more than that? I mean, these victims need to understand that it's not their fault. That they're made to feel that it's their fault, but it's not their fault. And, you know, I want that message to get out to victims. I want them to know that this police department belongs to them. We're there for their service, and they should use it. And they need to know when they call us, they're going to get 100% from us.
Oh, there are some telephone numbers, I think, Ms. Cannon, that you wanted us to talk about during this last minute. Let's give those telephone numbers and say something about that.
The YWCA Domestic Violence Program and Shelter phone number is 297-8833, and they have a 24-hour crisis hotline. They have support groups for battered women, and of course they have the shelter. And then the Peace phone number, which is only 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, we're not a crisis line, is 255-0711. And any woman wants to call and just ask us about our treatment program, and certainly any batter is welcome to come and join our program.
Very good. Let me thank both of you for coming by, Ms. Cannon and Sergeant Wynn, and giving us that excellent information about family and domestic violence this morning. And let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.